Welcome back and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I am Kenneth Shark Kinney, your host and Chief Shark Officer. Let me tell you about an amazing sponsor who helps make this show possible. I hope that you'll take a look at Drips, the founders of conversational texting, where they use conversational AI to help you reach customers where they're most responsive, and that's on their phones. And working with major brands like 3-Day Blinds, Liberty Mutual, Credit Repair, and Gainsco, Drips is leading the way for some of the biggest brands in the world to improve engagement rates and outcomes for their prospects and customers. And now back to the show. It's time to rethink lead generation, especially the way B2B companies think about attracting customers in a way that cuts through all the noise. Are you copying what your competitors do for so-called best practices and then relying on paid traffic to fix it? Or are you relying on creative, behavioral, and lateral ways of thinking in an organic manner in order to connect with consumers and rethink lead generation? Glad to welcome back a friend and now a three-peat guest on the show. Tom Shapiro is the CEO of Stratabeat, and now he's out with his newest book, Rethink Lead Generation. Definitely encourage you to check out earlier episodes 82 and 170 as well. Those featured Tom. And on this episode, we'll discuss how to rethink lead generation for B2B, organic versus paid advertising, so-called best practices, behavioral science, Antonio Damasio and Meatloaf for Salmon, the Eureka Myth, the Einstein Effect, the Lateral Thinking Framework, SEO, content marketing, organic growth, Brady and Belichick, wild animals in Tom's backyard, and a lot more. So let's tune into Shapiro 3 with a shark who's glad to be here for more than 300 shows now on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Tom, welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. We just didn't get enough of you on episodes 170 and episode 82, so we needed a three-peat trophy. And in lieu of a trophy, you'll actually just get a coupon for 10% off at your next purchase at Applebee's. So congratulations. Coupon expires next week, but I should be able to get it in the mail sometime over the weekend. But seriously, welcome back, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks so much, Shark. It's great being back.
Well, so let's talk about your new book. Congratulations are again in order. Rethink Your Lead Generation. Tell us a little bit more about the book and the impetus and how this really followed up off of your last big success, Rethink Your Marketing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so Rethink Lead Generation is all about how you can grow your leads for your business, right? And the big challenge that a lot of B2B marketers have today is that consumers are more educated than ever before. They're more sophisticated. There's more competition. Many markets are completely saturated with competitors now. And so the B2B marketer is really challenged to cut through all the noise and to break through and really connect and engage more deeply with their audience. But here's the thing. With B2B marketers, what do they typically do? They typically do what they've done in the past, right? And they just continue. And if they change things, it's usually just maybe tweaking around the edges, right? But tinkering around the edges just doesn't work. That is not what unleashes growth. They might copy the competition. They might look at what the media is hyping. But all of those things, it just doesn't work. And so what does work? What should a B2B marketer do today in order to increase their leads? And what I am arguing in the book is that it really comes down to extreme creativity, lateral thinking, and marketing innovation. That is the true way to unleash growth. That's the way to break through all of the noise in the market and really to captivate your audience, grab their attention, and drive them towards becoming a lead.
Let's dive into the book a little bit further. Why do best practices suck?
Yeah, best practices really do suck. So they suck because essentially, if you are following best practices and all of your competitors are following best practices, you're going to get lost in a sea of sameness, right? You are going to be very similar to all of your competitors. Now, in a B2B sale, typically the buyer will be evaluating at minimum 3 or 4 or 5 different options. In other cases, it can go up to 10 different options that they'll be evaluating. And so if everyone is following best practices, you're in trouble, right? Because everyone is going to be so similar. And so oftentimes what you need to do is look at best practices and recognize them, but then consider different options. Consider, what if we did the opposite? And it might be laughable, right? It might be counterintuitive, but oftentimes that's when you'll come across an idea that really helps you break through. That's when you come across an idea that helps you win the deal. And just, it makes it so clear that you're so differentiated from all the competitors. But yeah, best practices just leads to sameness, and sameness leads to mediocrity.
Agreed. You interviewed over 20 marketing leaders for the book, and we've been friends for some years, spoken on the circuit together. Any reason why there weren't 21 marketing leaders interviewed? I searched and searched, but I couldn't find my name anywhere. So please explain.
Well, Shark, I've talked with you a lot, and so I've absorbed a lot of your knowledge through the years.
Good
so
save.
That's naturally in the book.
Good save. Very good save. Yeah. Forward would have helped, but so how should we go about understanding that everyone is irrational?
Yeah, so this is something that we focus on as an agency a lot, is applying neuroscience and behavioral science and psychology to marketing. And what surprises us is the number of marketing teams that don't do this. And the reason why it's so important to do this is, we're all humans, right? And, we follow certain patterns, and those patterns are dictated by the construct of the brain. And so how is the brain constructed? Well, it's actually a supercomputer, right? The human brain is actually 30 times more powerful than the world's most powerful supercomputer. Think about that. That is a lot of horsepower. And when someone is making a decision, whether they're going to sign up for your webinar, whether they're going to, download your white paper, whether they're going to talk with your salespeople, whether they're going to take a demo, however they're going to engage with you, that's a lot of processing that's going on in their brain, right? And so if you're a marketer and you're not looking to tap into that brain power and to connect with them on a subconscious level, you're kind of crazy. And I say that because there have been studies done where it's been found that a purchase decision is about 90 to 95% based on the subconscious. And so if you are not seriously focused on connecting with your audience on a subconscious level, good luck. You're going to have a very difficult time moving them to action. And that's the thing. Yes, you can market to them, and yes, you'll win business, and yes, you can survive. Absolutely. But are you really going to move as many audience members to action as possible? And are you going to move them to the actions that matter most? It's just going to be more difficult for you. And so the more that you can understand how their brains operate, and then you can connect with them more deeply, you can engage with them more deeply, it's just a much, much more powerful way to be marketing. The neuroscientist Antonio Damasio ran some interesting studies of people who had damage to the part of the brain that triggers emotions, right? And so these people couldn't feel happy, they couldn't feel sad, they couldn't feel angry, they couldn't feel emotions. And what he found was they had a really, really, really difficult time making any type of decision, especially purchase decisions. And so, even something as stupid as like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Should I have salmon or should I have meatloaf? Well, salmon is very healthy. That's a great choice. But meatloaf, I love meatloaf. But salmon, if you season it the right way with rice, it's amazing. Oh, but meatloaf, I remember my grandma making me meatloaf, and they would endlessly waffle, right? And so it's like that with any type of decision. And if someone comes to your website and they're making the decision of whether to contact you, whether they want to talk to sales, whether they want to sign up for your webinar, whether they want to engage with you in any way, if you are not evoking an emotional response out of those people, you are making it physically and mentally more difficult for them to take any of those actions. And that's why people are irrational, but you need to connect with them on a subconscious level in order to guide them towards taking action.
So then how do we go about dismantling the Eureka myth, and tell us a little bit about what the Eureka myth is?
Yeah. So, anytime in our society when people are talking about innovation, they tend to think that there's this one light bulb moment, this one Eureka moment, and that's when innovation happens. And Stephen Johnson, the author and TED speaker, came out with a book Where Good Ideas Come From, which is amazing. I would highly recommend it to anyone. Even if you're not a marketer, I would recommend it. It's brilliant. And it talks about the evolution of innovation and where innovation really comes from. And he shows that actually it's much more iterative a process. and you keep building upon prior ideas. And that's where real innovation happens. And so too often marketers will think, okay, we just have to have one brainstorming session for half an hour and then that's it. And then we have lots of creative ideas. When actually what we need to be doing is building a culture of innovation. It needs to be something that's just built into your DNA. And if you're going to be brainstorming, brainstorm a lot, brainstorm all the time. If you have a brainstorm for a specific client, don't just have one, have multiple brainstorms, because again, like Stephen Johnson points out, it's all iterative, right? It's based off of prior knowledge and ideas, and then you just keep innovating and innovating. And so what I would argue is, if you want a competitive advantage in marketing, then you want to inject as much innovation as possible, right? Because then you're very differentiated from your competitors. You offer more value. You stand out. You're more memorable. There are just innumerable benefits to being more innovative than your competitors, and that's how you add value. That's how you create a very special company. But if you're going to do that, you can't be under this myth of the eureka moment, because you'll never achieve it. You'll never get there. And your marketing will never achieve the brilliance and the excellence and the innovation that it really should.
Great point. So another early topic you talk about that I love is cross-pollination. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's unclear who originally said this, but it's oh so accurate. The Einstein effect is a cognitive bias in which a person, say a marketer, is predisposed to solve a problem in the specific way they're used to doing it. Whatever they've done in the past is going to be their inclination for solving new challenges. It goes on talking about cognitive bias, but it's a great point. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but why do you think that so many people fall into this, which again, sort of moves a lot of that into best practices that suck?
Yes. Yeah. So, when you stick with what you know, it's very comfortable. That is the default setting for human behavior. And so we do have to make a concerted effort to change. And, there are many different ways that you can do that. And it's not always obvious that you should be cross-pollinating ideas. We feel better when we surround ourselves with people who think like us and talk like us and have the same ideas and values. And then, we all feel good about ourselves, right? It's self-reinforcing. But from a marketing perspective and from an innovation perspective, it's the worst thing that you can do, right? Right? I mean, there are lots of people out there, lots of audience members, and they are going to be different. And the more that you can be cross-pollinating ideas, it has been proven that you will be more innovative, you will be more creative. It's much easier to achieve lateral thinking success when you do that. There have been different studies done where looking at specific cities around the US, and the cities with the most immigrants, by chance, happen to have the most patent applications. When you think about that, from a corporate standpoint, that's invaluable. A patent is recognition of innovation. It's just, bringing it to life, making it actionable. And so, the fact that this is so prevalent and so obvious, yet so many marketing teams don't go out of their way to cross-pollinate ideas, to get ideas from the outside, right? Get ideas from your customers, from prospects, from partners, from consultants, from agencies. They tend to, what do? They tend to go into a conference room, right? Or at least pre-pandemic. Now they go into virtual conference rooms, and they surround themselves in this cocoon of like-minded people who talk to each other every day. And so they fit into certain patterns, they fit into a certain groove, and that feels comfortable. And so when they think that they're brainstorming new ideas, it's really only a sliver of their potential. Whereas if you bring in ideas from the outside, when you are actively or even proactively looking to bring in ideas from the outside, it really changes everything. And, it introduces idea that you never, ever would have thought of in your insular world within your marketing team.
Yeah, it's a great point. And one of the things that we need to do to break free of that is be creative. So talk really, I think a lot of this book kind of wraps this thought around it, is the lateral thinking framework for your lead generation.
Yeah. So let me explain the framework, and then And then we can go through several examples of how this comes to life in actual marketing scenarios. So what we do is, okay, so we'll do a lot of brainstorming, right? But not everyone knows how to do brainstorming and how to do it in a way that's going to generate fantastic ideas that really move the needle for your business. And so what we do is we have a very formal structure where we can itemize as many ideas as we want in a matrix, right? And in that matrix, we'll also look at, for every single idea, no matter how crazy it is, we'll look at, okay, how quickly can this be done? How easily can it be done? What's the cost of doing this? What's the revenue potential specifically? And then, you look at all of these things and you calculate an ROI. And so we do this for every single idea, and it makes it so dang easy to find the best ideas, right? And the brilliant thing about this is, let's say you have an event that's coming up, and so you're time limited, but you still want to be very creative and come up with innovative ideas. Well, because you have the time factor, how quickly can this be done in your matrix, then that helps you frame what's possible. And if it doesn't meet your timing requirements, then it's automatically disqualified. But let's say that you have all the time in the world, but you have a certain budget that you need to stay within. Same thing, the matrix covers all the bases. It helps you stay within a realistic framework. So it's not just crazy brainstorming where, you're just coming up with wacky and crazy ideas. It's not that. It's very realistic. It's very pragmatic, but you still get to come up with really, really substantial ideas. And let me give you a couple examples. So I was working at a company in a past life where we had a lot of business. Everyone was so busy. It was crazy. But the problem was, a lot of the busyness was on small projects. There were tons of clients with tiny projects. And so myself and a couple of colleagues looked at this and we said, well, you look at all the time we're wasting on these tiny projects, and it's really substantial. Whereas we had clients like Adobe, for example, where it was like, okay, software, huge. They have releases all the time. They have multiple products, plus they have multiple releases all the time. And each contract for one project with, say, an Adobe or an equivalent type of software company was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you compare that to the tiny projects where maybe it was like, $1,000. And it was just so ridiculous that we said, look, let's fire every client who is not like Adobe, and we'll only keep the Adobes of the world. And we wound up firing the majority of our clients and growing by 250% within 2 years after that as a result, right? It's a crazy idea to fire most of your clients, right? That's pretty radical. It's not typically the first thing that comes to your mind when you're grabbing your coffee in the morning, right? But by going through this framework, we were able to see that that's where all the ROI was, right? We had to do it. It was, yes, very counterintuitive. It was lateral thinking. Let's go out and fire most of our clients. But it led to dramatic growth. And at the end of that 2-year period, the owner of the business was able to sell the business for a multiple of annual revenue. And so, he made a heck of a lot of money, and he's a great guy. He deserved it. He was he's just a fantastic guy. He's a friend. But it takes lateral thinking to come up with something like that. I'll give you another example. So we started talking with a company about just bringing them more leads, right? And so one of the things that we were going to do for them was blogging. Lots and lots of agencies do blogging, right? I mean, that is a very, very common practice, very standard. And so you might think, well, how can you brainstorm about blogging? Well, just come up with topics. So this is where lateral thinking comes in. We said, the first thing we need to do for this client with blogging is blow up their website. That's the first thing we need to do, right? We need to focus on their branding first before we even write one word. Why? Because their branding just wasn't going to do it. We could create Shakespearean blog posts, right? And it would not have made a bit of difference if the branding was off. And so they wanted to target Fortune 500 accounts. And we looked at their website and we said, there's no way in the world Fortune 500 accounts are going to take you seriously with this website. We have to completely redo it. So we guided them through a complete rebrand, And they only had 2 case studies at the time, and both were, I don't know, like Joe's Pizza Shop. I mean, it was stupid, right? And so we said, no. You have big accounts. We're going to go out and we have to have massive case studies, really impressive case studies of your biggest accounts. And they said, well, they won't let us name names. And we said, we don't care. Like, let's not name names, but we have to have a massive library proving how amazing you are, how awesome you are, right? And so we built that, put that in the website, had tons and tons of stories to tell. We guided them through a complete revamp, every single word of the website, complete revamp. And then we started blogging. In blogging, instead of just coming up with like 700-word blog posts or 1,000-word blog posts, ours are like 3, 4, 5, 6,000 words each. So it is a ton of copy. We're like the Library of Congress, every single week, it's just a river of words every single month. And on top of that, then we come out with very, very detailed research that we use as lead magnets, right? On top of that, what we also focus on just as much is, okay, yes, we're going to optimize this and we're going to optimize it like crazy, right? But let's say that that's 50% of our focus. The other 50% of our focus is going to be making it awesome. How do we do that? Storytelling, videos, stats, on and on and on to make the experience just crazy good. And so we helped this company go from very little traffic. We increased their organic traffic by 3,151%. within 2 years. So, you don't do that by just approaching blogging, looking at, okay, well, how many blogs do you want a month? No, that ain't going to get you there. You need to think laterally. You need to think about other things like, okay, yes, we're going to optimize the heck out of it, but at the same time, we're going to make sure, we have videos, we have, graphics, we have, unique original research. We have all these things that, we have tons of storytelling. We have quotes. You have to make the experience amazing, because then even without any concerted effort on link building, people are going to be linking to you like crazy, which is what happened.
How can someone start being able to change the way they think about this, especially from a marketing standpoint, considering that a lot of what you're talking about is also organic? Yes. You're not talking about paid advertising. And Correct. This is for a lot of people that haven't had money, they get it to spend. But if you have had invested some money, I mean, these are fundamental changes in the ways that a lot of marketers, at least the way you're explaining it, should think.
Right. And I'm glad you're bringing up this point. So the entire book, it does focus on organic methods of growth, right? And that's what our agency does as well. We focus on organic, whether it's SEO, whether it's content development, content marketing, whether it's conversion optimization, ABM, behavioral intelligence, all of these ways of doing things without quote unquote spending money, without paying for a click, without paying to play. And that's really the crux of the book, is when you're talking about innovation, we want to earn trust. Right? We want to earn trust. With advertising, you're not so much earning trust with someone, right? You're paying for a click, you're renting a click. And if you stop paying, then it goes away completely. Whereas with organic, even if you completely stop today, you're still at full speed ahead tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. It compounds over time. And so we would argue that when you want to focus on marketing innovation and extreme creativity, it really plays well in the organic space. That's where you can really maximize these concepts the most. And so that's why we focus there. Now, to your question of how do you get executives to understand the value of doing this, of shifting to more creativity and less reliance on, say, advertising per se, because advertising can be very reliable, right? So what I would say is, if you really want to maximize your revenue, what you really need to do every year, regardless of what you're doing, even if you have paid media as a big part of your budget, you always want to be eliminating the bottom 20% of your marketing every year, right? Just look at what's performing and what's not, and look at the bottom 20% that's not really performing, and completely eliminate it. It's interesting, a lot of companies, what they'll do, or a lot of marketing teams, they'll still keep it around, right? They hesitate letting go, right? And so, you see a lot of non-performing marketing. It's the same with blog posts. You see a lot of companies that will let all of their blog posts live forever and never reevaluate and say, you know what? Like, these 300 blog posts suck. We get zero traffic. We're getting zero value out of them. Let's 301 redirect them so that Google has higher crawl efficiency and understands exactly, where we're strong, and we'll get rid of the stuff that's not working. And so that's the first step, is we need to have agreement with executives that there has to be some elimination. There has to be some. And then the question is, okay, well, what do you do when you have 20% of your budget to spend, right? We would argue you can parallel path what you've been doing in the past with experimenting, right? With launching new initiatives that are more creative, that do follow lateral thinking, that are more innovative. And so it doesn't have to be an overnight thing where you're putting 100% of your budget into these bold moves, right? You're putting all your chips into the center of the table for 100% of your budget. Doesn't quite have to be that way, right? If something has worked for you in the past, stick with it, but then experiment on the side, parallel path. And maybe these experiments are going to be the new normal for you. Maybe those are going to outperform everything else. And so that's what I would say in terms of, if anyone is hesitating and resistant to this idea of being more creative, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Well, the book is a great way to get them started to rethinking that, if you will. I'm not trying to play on words, but it is a good way. And there's a ton of great content towards the back talking about SEO, website, content marketing. It's a great deep dive. But Tom, it's that time in the show. So we talked about this before. And when I've asked you this, I think, a couple of times, but your favorite shark was a hammerhead back. It was like 2.5 years ago when we recorded one together, back when conferences in person were a real thing.
That's right.
I don't know if you've heard about COVID or not, but it's been in the news a little bit. But so one of the questions, though, that we're going to get into with the 5 questions, the 5 most interesting and important questions that I'm going to reference back to, though, since we met, I asked you Tom Brady or Bill Belichick back on I think the first episode, and you said Belichick. Tom went off to win a Super Bowl. Would you change that answer now, or would you still stick with Belichick?
I think I would go with both of them now. I think I still believe in Belichick. I do. And I think that given time, he'll probably win another Super Bowl without Tom Brady. Tom Brady is insanely amazing. And, obviously I'm in Boston. We love him. So I would say I couldn't choose at this point. Today, I couldn't choose. They're both amazing.
Well, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm still, Tom's the GOAT. So the numbers speak for themselves. All right, we're going to get into the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today. Are you ready?
Yes.
Because we're talking a lot about organic lead generation, this is an obvious question for you. Number 1, organic food or local food?
Local.
Good answer. So I read this on, I think it was food.com, for the health conscious consumers. Yes, USDA organic food is better for you because it's GMO and pesticide free. However, the mass produced, refrigerated, and internationally transported exotic fruit does not likely have the same nutritional value as an in-season local fruit, for example. Very interesting. So number 2, we were talking about what Damasio's choices were: meatloaf or salmon?
Well, salmon, but with a caveat. Salmon if my wife prepares it.
Okay.
She's an amazing cook. I don't know how she does it, but yeah, I've never had salmon as good as hers. I've never had chicken as good as hers. I mean, she knows how to cook, and it's better than even restaurant quality. So I kind of hit the lottery with dinner in my lifetime. So I'll go with salmon.
Number 3, we were talking a little bit about The Matrix earlier. So I really enjoy Keanu Reeves, a lot of his movies. I'm not going to ask you The Matrix 1 versus anything else, but I will say The Matrix or John Wick series.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a
Despite
doubt.
the fact that the others were kind of goofy. But if you'd ask me point blank, I would even blink a little bit on that. So number 4, which would you rather see out in the woods? Wild deer or wild turkey?
Wild deer. And we
All
have
the
both
wild turkey are in
our
your backyard. Yeah.
Well,
So
we have both in our backyards. So yeah, you know that we have turkeys visiting us all the time. Wild turkeys, right? And they come in flocks of like 15, 17. They like to hang out together. But we also have deer in our backyard too. And so we'll see. I would say we see them equally as frequently as the other. Obviously the deer are not in packs of 15 or 17. It's usually like 2 or 3 at a time. But the deer are a little nicer than having these flocks of crazy turkeys running around.
well, you can also get wild turkey in a case. So it's your local liquor store. All right. We've already discussed on number 5, biscuits and cornbread. So we're going to switch this up a little bit. Fried chicken or fried catfish?
Oh, that is a tough one. I love both. I love both.
I'm basically asking cuisine questions from Cracker Barrel. These are the choices that come up.
Oh, I love both of those. Oh, I don't know. Can I take both?
No, you got to pick one. Which one does your wife prepare better?
Like I said, I've never had chicken as good as how she prepares it. So I'll go with the fried chicken.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So Tom, where can people find out more about you, get a copy of this book and a lot more?
So people can find me at tomshapiro.com. They can learn about me there. They can learn about both of the books. So Rethink Your Marketing as well as Rethink Lead Generation. And also Stratabeat.com is our agency. As mentioned, we're a B2B organic growth agency, providing things like SEO and content marketing and conversion optimization, design, ABM, things like that. And so Stratabeat.com for that. And also I would encourage people to connect with me directly on LinkedIn. So, that I always welcome people reaching out there and also happy to answer any lead gen questions that people might have. So I would say look for the book either at tomshapiro.com or you'll find it on Amazon as well.
Tom, thank you so much for being with us again on A Shark's Perspective.
Thanks so much, Shark.
So there was my conversation with Tom Shapiro, the CEO of Stratabeat and the author of Rethink Lead Generation. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with him. First, I was just talking about this on my last episode. Best practices suck. It creates a so-called sameness with what your competitors are doing. What would happen if you did the opposite and uncover a new idea, something Tom posed. As he said, best practices lead to sameness and sameness leads to mediocrity. Amen to that. Second, something that Tom and I both talk about on stages when we're presenting at conferences. Apply behavioral science to your lead generation. A lot of the decisions we make are made on a subconscious level. So tap into that. Not nearly enough marketers are talking about that, but really lean into the psychology of why people act and why people buy. Understand how their brains operate in order to connect better through neuroscience. Third, as Tom said, people don't often cross-pollinate ideas. We fall into these same habits and we surround ourselves with what's comfortable, even in business. It's our marketing whoopee, if you will. And don't just rely on the ideas that make you feel comfortable with your immediate surroundings. It's hard to get marketers, let alone executives, to change their ways. Innovate through creativity and not just advertising. I'm more of a fan of advertising as part of that mix than Tom is, but Tom makes great points on the organic way that we need to rely on creativity. He simply reminds us to eliminate what's not working. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I'm so thankful to everybody who listens. Thank you to my sponsor and the amazing team at Drips. Please consider writing a review and letting me know your thoughts on the show. Reach out, send me an email. Experiment, innovate, be curious like a shark, and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.